The previous basket is under review.
Welcome back to Stats by Will and Jim, the college basketball podcast that focuses on the numbers. We are proudly under the Basket Under Review umbrella. Please check out the site and the Discord as you are getting prepped for the college basketball season. We've got all kinds of terrific writing, team previews, breakdowns of coaching approaches from Jordan Majeski, Brian Ralph's terrific breakdowns, just all kinds of tremendous content behind the paywall there, and some outside of the paywall, including this podcast and the Basket Under Review podcast with Eamon Brennan. We just launched the Weekend Under Review show with Brian Ralph and Matt Winnick. That's going to be great through the season. So check out everything that is going on at Basket Under Review. It's only $10 a month. It gets you access to everything. I am Jim Root, your host here at Stats. I'm joined from vacation by Mr. Will Warren. That's right, folks. For you, the people, Will is stepping in to talk Big 12. Will, how are you feeling? Is your mind kind of in vacation mode? Or are you locked in?
I'm always in vacation mode, Jim. No, it's I'm in Charleston for those curious, not for media days or anything, I don't think, but just for fun, get away on my wife's fall break. But I'm gonna send you a photo here in a bit. We went out to a barbecue restaurant yesterday, very good. It's called Lewis Barbecue. She took a photo of me, 0.5 zoom, whole thing on the iPhone. I'm looking at it and I made a face that very visual podcast I can only describe as looking like Mr. Beast. And I've never been more mortified of a photo of myself.
Hey, if only you could make money like Mr. Beast, I guess. I don't know. That'd be great.
Yeah. So we're stuffing our readers in a house or whatever it is he does.
Yeah. Whoever can survive the longest makes $1 million.
If you can survive all 30 Utah games this year.
Welcome to the Big 12 Gauntlet. We challenge you. If you can do it, you'll make some big time money. That's our beast games for the year. That's our stats game for the year. Yes, as mentioned, our topic is the Big 12 preview. We will be going down Will's standings, talking about the number that matters most for that team coming up this year, the number that will define the season. But Will, we got to start with our little trivia, our stat nugget. And for this conference, for the Big 12, the question for you is, last year, the Big 12 ranked third in conference efficiency per KenPom. It's essentially the net rating needed to go 500 in the league. Prior to that, when was the last time the league did not rank in KenPom's top two? So how long has it been? That is the question I posed to you.
I looked this up last year, actually. This is going off memory. I'm thinking it's been 12 seasons.
That's correct. 2013. Ding, 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 ding.
Okay.
Well done, Mr. Warren. Yes. In 2013, after they dropped Mizzou and Texas A&M for TCU and West Virginia, they fell to third. And that kind of makes sense. This past year, they add Utah, Colorado, and Arizona State. A little bit of drag on the efficiency. Arizona, you're off the hook. But yes, adding some teams, realignment can reshape the competitiveness of the league. Bonus question, because I can't have you just get it right, Will. That's not fun. How many times in those 12 seasons, or I guess it's actually been 11 where it was 1 or 2. How many times was it number 1 of those 11 years?
Can I go 8?
Oh, so close. It was 9.
Oh, damn. It was 9. Okay, pretty close then.
Wait, no.
Or
actually, I think I did.
Weren't.
The 2 years they weren't were 2020 and 2021. So you can just blame COVID.
Okay. Yeah, fake seasons. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Didn't have the postseason and then didn't have a regular season or normal season in 2021. So the Big 12 has been consistently fantastic at basketball. As we mentioned, got a little bit knocked last year by the addition of some of the lower level teams, and we'll get to some of those lower level teams at the bottom of the standings here in the Big 12. But before we get into the teams, got to give a shout out to Home Field, our sponsor here at Basket Under Review. It is the best place to get your college sports apparel for the upcoming hoops season. Also check it out for your college football washing needs. They've got all kinds of unique logos, unique schools, special retro logos on all kinds of amazingly comfortable gear, joggers, sweatshirts, hats, t-shirts, whatever it is you're looking for to amp up your wardrobe. Check out Home Field Apparel and use promo code BURNER15 while you're doing it for 15% off your first purchase. BURNER15, homefieldapparel.com We love home field. We love wearing home field. Shout out to Home Field Apparel. All right, Will, it is time to get into the Big 12 team by team. Let me just quick ask you this question before we do. Do you believe the Big 12 will be back among the top 2 conferences this year, going off of our trivia question? Will they stay 3? Will they fall further? Or will they be back up among the 1 and 2 elite?
I lean no, but I think there's a real path for them to go back to number 2. I think it's going to take a bit for the SEC to come back from number 1, just because I did look into this back in April and May 1, and it takes when you have these record-setting years, the next year is still pretty good. It's never the same. Like you don't do the Mario double jump in conference rankings. So I mean, they'll come back down, but they were so good that the meaning of them coming back down is probably still them being number 1. And the Big Ten also had its own historic year. One of the 10 best average ratings ever. I think I lean no because of the back 5 or so of this conference. I there's a real path where spitballing here, like 3 teams don't finish top 100, and in the SEC, I think there's only one that people are really considering outside the top 100. Big Ten, maybe 1 or 2. So I think that net drag on the back end is going to keep them from getting up there. But I do think, as we'll get into, the top 6 of this conference could be the best top 6 of any conference in America.
Yeah, a little less parity potentially in the Big 12. I'm with you. I think it stays at number 3. I think it's because of numbers 12 through 16 at the bottom of the league, where it's shaky ground. There's some real bad paths or bad outcomes for those rosters if things go south in a hurry. So I think that is going to drag things down a little bit too much for the Big 12, despite, as you mentioned, man, the top 6 title contenders abound. Some teams that could maybe be bouncing back from vaguely down years last year, or just getting even better with a newer coach, BYU type of situation. All right, let's start with the top of your standings. Actually, should I read 1 through 16, Will, or should I just let the people find out as we go?
I think you should let people find out as we go, because if you read 1 through 16, we have sizable contingents on the Discord. We'd have 3 for sure. 3's got a lot. 4's got a lot. 5 and 6 a few. We have I don't know if we have a sizable amount or if we have just one really loud guy at number 10.
Yeah, fair.
So I think that we should kind of let people guess ahead of time what those mean.
Yep, love it. Yeah, there's some good people, a good present for number 11. All right, let's get into it. Number 1, probably not going to surprise anybody. They're the betting favorite for this conference and generally going to be the pick. It's Houston atop the league. My stat here, Will, that I picked as the one that will guide the outcome for Houston is the offensive ratings of Isaiah Harwell and Chris Senack, the 2 freshmen that I think are generally expected to start. Perhaps Kelvin Sampson goes with Khalifa Sacco or a more experienced guy over Senack at the big man spot. But it's not been frequent where a Houston team has to rely on true freshmen. It's basically been Jarris Walker, who's the one that started like an extended or almost the entire season. Since Sampson has taken over, there's been a few other guys that have snuck into the lineup. I think Sasser started about half the games when he was there. But it's not like Sampson to rely on freshmen. Obviously, this is a different freshman class, 3 guys in the top 20. I just want to see if those guys are good enough to fully deserve those spots, or if it's going to end up being Houston saying, all right, let's just go with Mercy Miller and Sacco and Cedric Loth and the guys that have been around and been through the practice wars with Mr. Sampson. Or does the talent really ride out and those guys stand out and they're good enough, especially offensively, to help cover for the losses from last year, your Jalen Roberts and LJ Cryer. So that's the big one for me. I think maybe 3-point percentage could be a little lower hanging fruit with how elite they were last year in that department. But I'm just really zeroed in on those freshmen, Will, and the impact that they have.
I like that pick. Mine is going to be 2-point percentage for them if I had to go with one, just because it was shocking how low they were last year at 296. I mean, they essentially had to shoot the lights out from 3 to get as far as they did. But with Houston, I actually have a different stat. So obviously 4 straight second place finishes at Ken Palm. What is the lowest ranking they've had from December 1st onward of any of those 4 seasons?
December 1st onwards.
So like removing any sort of preseason weirdness.
2 again?
No, they were eighth for a day in 2022.
Oh,
In
okay.
January
So the
2022, they
continuous
were
sliding
eighth for
scale,
one day.
and then they beat somebody by 30 or something.
Yeah. I think it was East Carolina, and then they were like never lower than fifth again.
Okay.
Which that's it. I mean, that gives you a real look into the floor here. And we'll get into Kansas later, but it does sort of feel like their thunder was stolen a bit by Houston entering this league and not only immediately taking it over, but really asserting themselves defensively. And, a lot of people were like, well, the athletic jump from the AAC to the Big 12 could slow them down. I kind of was on that train myself a little bit of, the first year they could lose a few more than they anticipate. They might finish like eighth or something. And just hasn't been the case. They've been awesome no matter what. The floor is just so high that for them to lose this league, you have to be saying they're going to have to go like 1-5 in one score games. It would have to be some sort of weird coin flippy thing that's not repeatable for them to, really struggle.
Yeah, and they've been pretty good in close games recently because they've had shot making, and they've still got a decent amount of that with Milos Uzan and Emmanuel Sharp. I think you'll get a little bit more from Harwell too. So it's not quite the LJ Cryer led onslaught from deep, but they're going to be able to shoot. The offensive rebounding is great, and Will, one thing you've harped on this podcast is when you're looking at a defense, you love a point of attack guy, a wing guy, and a big man. And with Uzan, with Sharp, and JoJo Tugler, perhaps the best defender in the country, they've got all those boxes checked to go with a staff that clearly is dominant on that end. One other just little statistical nugget I love with Houston is that they've ranked in the top 15 of 3-point percentage defense for 7 straight years. Like they are able to control opponents' shooting. The Ken Pom had
Yeah.
the blog post about not being able to control that, it being a little bit random. Houston is an outlier and an exception there because of their length, their activity level, how uncomfortable they make you, the physicality. It's just an outrageous defense at every level.
Well, the wingspan is just it's impossible to replicate in your own practices. I mean, you look at some of the wingspans. We've talked about JoJo Tuckler, 6'8", but a 7'6" wingspan. I mean, just truly insane thing to say out loud. Uzan's I think +5 or +6. Sharp is +5. Terrence Arsenault before he transferred was a 6'5" guy with a 7'1" wingspan. You have just all sorts of it's a team of arms, which is great. I also do want to see how much Kingston Flemings matters to this team. Because it would be cool if A, he can play with Uzan, and B, he can take a little heat off of Uzan having to own the ball the whole game. Because last year, as we saw, LJ Cryer was not awful at point guard, but it clearly was not his position du jour. And I think, Flemings being a point guard, if he can learn to play off ball this year, and I think he's going to have to anyway, that could open things up for them a little bit to give Uzan a little rest.
Yep, definitely important. I love the wingspan point. Like, there are people that look at this team and say, "Oh, they're undersized in the front court,"
Mm-hmm.
and you're just like, "No, they're not." Javier Francis had like a 7'5" wingspan, as you mentioned. Tugler 7'6". Like, these guys are enormous. It's just if you're measuring from ground to top of head, sure, maybe not as giant as you think, but it's really hard to score against them because of that length.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, moving to number 2, Will. BYU, the Cougars of Provo, year 2 for Kevin Young. What are you zeroed in on as the big number to watch for BYU this year?
Pretty simple one, actually. Defensive rating. So we're talking about points allowed per 100 possessions. Last year to get top 50 or so, you had to be at 99 per 100 or lower or thereabouts. That's adjusted for schedule and all that. I bring all of this up because, last year's team thrilled everybody down the stretch for pretty obvious reasons. They were a lot of fun. Like you had Richie Saunders run. Uh, they made the Sweet 16 and they're a pretty popular dark horse Final Four pick almost. And I bring all this up because from February 1st onward last year, BYU had the number 3 offense. Only team better was Alabama and I think Purdue. They'll have to double check that. But either way, top 3 offense, but 80th best defense in that same stretch. 105 points allowed per 100 possessions. If you run back that, so we both think college basketball as a whole, we're not going to have as much dominance at the top this year. So it's probably not going to be a deal where if you were 3rd and 80th again, you'd be like, I don't know, 17th or 18th in KenPom. That would probably get you 10th this year or 11th. But I think we would both agree BYU's sights are set a little higher than that, rightfully so. I think they are capable of a 1 seed this year, and given the talent at hand and how much they've invested in this roster, they should believe it. I would want to see, assuming they can sustain the offensive gains and be, I don't know, fifth, sixth, something like that. Let's just, add in a little bit of regression. I would want to see nothing worse than top 40 defensively. I think the length is there. The athleticism is for sure there. This is really a more talented roster than last year, too. I think, part of it last year is they had to sacrifice on defense to feed the offense. But I would want to see that improve this year. Rob Wright is not an amazing defender, but he's at least fine. Saunders doesn't get the credit he deserves defensively. Neither does Kiva Keita, who's going to be a real breakout candidate at center. And if Depansa can hold up, I can really see it with this group. So that's my number. I want to see a top 40 defense for BYU.
Yeah, I think Debence is excellent on that end. I was worried about it, and then watching the FIBA stuff, like he really cares, and he's got all the physical tools to be awesome on that end. And the way he was kind of getting after the ball, guarding for 94 feet sometimes when they wanted him to, I kind of believe in his defense. I'm looking at Evan Mia's projections for him as the second best defender on the roster, and I think I buy it with his tools. Got to figure out some depth inside behind Kiba Keita because they like to platoon those big guys, but Keita's a real presence. And then, yeah, is Kennard Davis the wing stopper? Do they have somebody? Is it Debansa? I think they're going to be fine. And I'll give a little plug for myself here with an article coming out of The Athletic, either late this week or early next week, about teams that use zone as a curveball. And I got to talk to the BYU staff a little bit about when they like to use it, when they feel like they need to use it, just mixing it up. And I think that cleverness and just a couple possessions you squeeze out an extra stop or two is really helpful for a team that maybe isn't fully built to be a defensive juggernaut. It's built to score points after points after points. But if they're good enough defensively, this is a true national title contender. And as we'll mention, is that number 40 seems like a really good barometer.
Mm-hmm.
All right, number 3, Texas Tech, the Red Raiders of Lubbock, a team that was basically a couple front ends away from a Final Four last year under Grant McCasland, coach who has never not beaten his preseason KenPom ranking. The number I have circled here, and I don't know if it's the obvious one, but for me, it's Christian Anderson's turnover rate and turnovers per game as he moves from mostly off the ball next to Elijah Hawkins to the true on-ball threat. He was pretty solid taking care of the ball as a freshman, but largely because he wasn't asked to do a ton. This year, there's not a lot of support around him. It's basically Lawan Watts as a jumbo point forward, Jalen Petty as a fringe top 100 recruit off the bench. They just kind of missed on most of their top candidates to be a secondary creator. And you look at some of the FIBA numbers this offseason where Anderson was the guy at point guard. 6.6 assists per game. Great. Love that. 4 turnovers a game for Germany. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty high number. And obviously the assist to turnover ratio is still good there. We're not knocking that. But if he's kind of coughing it up a lot and they're not able to feed JT Toppin quite as much or get their open shooters as many looks as they did last year, Elijah Hawkins was brilliant in that regard. It just could incrementally knock an elite offense. Last year, they're 20th in turnover rate nationally. If Anderson ascending into that role knocks them down to around 100th or so, it could have a little bit of a drag on an offense that was elite and still could be. So I'm really looking closely at how he does handling the ball and tangentially a little bit how many minutes he plays, because it could be a lot.
Yeah, I think an important thing there too, we don't really see as many sophomore sluts in college basketball anymore. They still exist. Like you can remember Tyrese Proctor being a pretty notable one. But what we do see a lot of, and Proctor actually does meet this, if you'll recall, is like the half slump, where the first half of a sophomore season, they might struggle a bit because they're being asked to do a bit more than they have gotten themselves used to. Maybe the competition level grows. It could be one of any number of factors. But I would actually take your point and then like twist it a little bit. I want to see Anderson's numbers in Big 12 play specifically. So non-con, like they have a pretty, good group of games. You got Illinois, you got Arkansas, Duke in there. those are all good. Like that's interesting. That's exciting. Obviously, I'm not blind to that. But I want to see because my anticipation here is that he's going to struggle a bit scaling up in usage and importance to start. But if he still has that in February, that's a concern. But if we get to February and we see like a January where his turnover rate dropped 5% or assist rates way up, whatever it might be, I think that would be a really, really good sign. Because when you have this good of a roster, frankly, when it fits as well as this one does together, and this is, I mean, arguably a top five fit period in college basketball, this whole roster, it just seems like every piece really works together, which is a sign of a good coach and a good GM. I would say that it's not as important to me what you do in November and December as once we get to February and then, the start of March. Let's see how it looks for them then, because if Anderson can't do it, uh, who can? Because I'm
Yeah,
not
I'm not.
sure, like, what's the backup plan there if there is an actual sophomore slump? I'm sure there is one, and it'll make sense, but hard to really pick one out based on roster alone. Like, do you want Jalen Petty playing big minutes as a freshman? I don't know that I do.
Yeah, I think it's probably the Texas Tech fans would probably say, "All right, we're just going to make Watts a full time point forward." The way
Mhm.
they tried to play a lot through Darian Williams last year, but even last year, Elijah Hawkins was third in the Big 12 in assist rate. Clearly needed a point guard playmaker, and it's helpful to have that. And I'm just not sure there's any other option if Anderson isn't quite hitting on all cylinders. The depth is certainly something worth watching. McCaslin teams don't always need that. It's not like he's playing 11 guys, but can they get past 7 with this roster? Can Petty play? Can Groves play? I don't know. And it's really, really limited after that. So this team also is, like more than most, probably prone to an injury knocking them for an extended stretch. They need to stay healthy. Another real big thing to watch and monitor with this Texas Tech roster.
I will give you a number I just looked up. Roster last year, or members of the roster this year, combined to shoot last year 56% from two, 39% from three. Uh, One, bonkers. If that holds, that's a top eight shooting offense in the sport, too. Um, Based on that, if I offered you an over under, and remember they finished fifth last year, of 4.5 final offensive ranking, where would you go?
For Texas Tech overall, nationally,
Yeah.
I would
Hmm.
say, oh, in the Big 12?
No, nationally, because they finished
Oh,
fifth nationally. So you're
I'll
betting,
say
do they
over.
finish better than that or worse?
I'll say a little bit worse.
I could be sold on better.
Okay. All right.
I could be sold on better. Though there is the aspect of like they were not only really good shooting last year, they were also great at turnover prevention and also great on the offensive boards, which feeds back into your Anderson point. I've got to keep the turnovers low.
Yep. And I mean, top end is just like a guaranteed 30% usage, efficient, great on the offensive glass. It's a little like when Broom was back for Auburn. Having that big of a stud in the lane guarantees you such a high floor. And how do they fill the spots in around him? We'll see. But I think they've got plenty of or not plenty of options, really quality fit options. It's just a matter of depth and staying healthy throughout the entire season. All right, number
Mm.
4, Arizona. Definitely a strong contingent in the Discord as well. Here, Will, or specifically one or two names, but a team that's been really consistent under Tommy Lloyd. Maybe not the postseason success that they've desired year after year, but what are you looking at this year for the Wildcats as their key number?
Do you think our favorite guy could change his name to a fan of the best fourth place team? I
I
think that
think
would be a really good
that would
bet.
feel good. Yes,
So same stretch BYU took off last year, February 1st onward. Did you know Arizona had the eighth best offense?
I did not. Caleb Love set the world
Did you
ablaze.
know also they had the 45th best defense? So
Okay,
what
so
I'm
this
looking
team was
for this season is 2-point percentage allowed. So under Lloyd, Arizona is an astonishing 67-6 when holding opponents to 45% or lower from two. Arguably most impressive, they've done that 73 times in 4 seasons. Um, this is intriguing to me because there's only one plus shot blocker in this roster in Krivas. I really wish that Toby Awako was like 2 inches taller because the effort will never be questioned with him. He's a maniac on the floor. But defense was always fine when he was at Tennessee, and I would say he graded out fine last year defensively. But I'm not sure that he'll ever be more than fine because he is a little undersized at 6'8", doesn't have super long arms. He is built like a linebacker, of course. So that makes up for a lot. And obviously, he's going to be an amazing rebounder. He is one of, honestly, the best rebounders I've ever seen at the college level. But I've got to see that interior defense hold up amongst the best of the best because if it's not Krivas, I don't really know who steps in to help there because I think perimeter wise, we like this defense. I think they're going to be pretty darn stout on the exterior of that. And I trust Tommy a lot to do a pretty good job all around, I would say, with basically everything involved in running a program. But the interior defense I find a hair questionable, especially when last year was actually their second best block percentage, but their lowest 2-point percentage allowed. I don't know, man. I like this team, but I want to see can you get stops? And specifically here, there's a 7-game stretch in the schedule that is just insane at the end. I don't know if you've seen it. This is from February 9th to March 2nd. At Kansas, home Texas Tech, home BYU, at Houston, at Baylor, home Kansas, home Iowa State. If your interior defense is leaky at all, that could be 3 and 4. If your interior defense is really darn strong, 5 and 2 or 6 and 1 is definitely on the boards. So I've got to see something there.
If you go 6-1 against that schedule, you're probably getting like a 2 seed.
You might get a 1
seed. Yeah, I mean that's just like
yeah.
high Q1 game after high Q1 game over and over. It is a true gauntlet. It's crazy when you see Baylor on the schedule and you're like, oh, thank goodness we get to play Baylor instead of one of these like top 12 in the entire country teams, which is the Big 12 is loaded with them. Positionally.
I didn't even mention the final home game out of that, and it doesn't count because it's obviously not Q1, is at Colorado, which is far from a walk in the park.
Yeah, go ahead and have fun at altitude. Everybody loves going to Boulder after playing 7 straight Q1 games. Going to be tough to keep the boys focused, the lads focused for that one. But yeah, this roster is positionally huge. Like Jaden Bradley's the smallest guy in the rotation, probably. He's 6'3", really good guard defender, highest projected DBPR per Evan Mia. And you add in like the freshmen are big, they're well built. They're showing up ready to play college basketball. Koa Pete and Braden Burries are older, they're bigger, they're stronger. Karchenkov from Europe is big. It's just, does City Gay offer a little bit of alternative rim protection? I kind of don't think so, just because I think it's going to be an Owaka Krivas platoon at center, like you mentioned. The size, the physicality, can that hold up to offset maybe a little bit less shot blocking? Because I don't think Krivas is going to be like some bouncy rim swatter. It's more he's a mountain of a man that will eat space and use verticality to take away shots at the rim. So it's been a kind of a rim dominant program under Lloyd, like got the same Gonzaga thing going where they play up tempo and just dominate you, bludgeon you inside. And Arizona's probably going to be able to do that again. It's just, as you mentioned, does the defense hold up in quite the same way without Christian Koloko or Umar Ballo or somebody that's a little more set up to be a shot blocker, even Henry Vasar last.
Yeah.
All right, going to Kansas at number 5 here. The Jayhawks, wow, it feels weird to say them that far down after they won the Big 12 for seemed like 2 straight decades.
It was like 12 straight years was the deal? Yeah. Regular season for sure, 12 straight years.
Yeah, it was like set it and forget it. Maybe they had 1 tie in that 12 straight or something, but yeah, they were a total juggernaut in this conference. And again, maybe low-hanging fruit here, Will, but for me, the numbers are 62, which is Bill Self's age, and 2, which is the number of heart procedures Bill Self has had in the last 3 years. Because just the most important thing to me, looking at the outlook for the Jayhawks, is whether Bill Self is going to be on the sideline and fully healthy the entire year. I think there's going to be speculation about that all through the rest of this offseason, the final month leading up to the year, and then even through the season. Can he be on the sideline? They lost in the second round of the NCAA tournament to Arkansas when they were 1 seed because they did not have Bill Self. And I just think they need him to maximize the potential. And I'd imagine he's excited about this group. It's a new refreshed roster. He said Darren Peterson's the most complete freshman he's ever coached. There's a lot to like with the defensive upside and versatility, but man, can Bill Self be there to maximize it? That is my question. And well, I do have one little mini trivia question for you. How many Sweet 16s has Kansas been to in the past 7 seasons?
Okay, so they obviously won the title in 22, so that's the free space on the
That's a
board. Is
gimme.
it
Yeah,
really just
exactly.
one?
It is just one. And
Yeah,
for,
because they got demolished. Or was that? Yeah, 2019. They got demolished by Auburn in the round of 32. That was the swing in my head.
yep. And for Jayhawks fans screaming, yes, the 2020 team almost definitely would have gotten to the Sweet 16. They're
Mhm.
probably the best team in the country with Dotson and Azubuike and a great supporting cast, but it doesn't count, unfortunately, because it wasn't played. So I get to make my little statistical case here. But yeah, it's wild. Only one Sweet 16 in the past 7 years for a very storied program. But yeah, Will, your thoughts on Kansas and how important self health is for this upcoming year?
It's very important because, one, I have to admit, I'm a little surprised he's only 62. I guess it's because he's just been around for so long that I thought he was like, Rick Barnes' age almost. But um, the number more specific to me, do you want to guess what the number one signifies? And it is not their preseason ranking the last 2 years.
What's the number one what?
What the number one, like one, signifies for this team?
The only one time in Bill Self's tenure that they've had less than a 4 seed.
That's the number of players on this roster that shot better than 32% from three last year.
Ugh.
And it is Jaden Dawson. Now, obviously, Darren Peterson is a special, special offensive athlete. I think it's pretty notable. So I don't know how much you've used like Synergy's NBA role models feature, where you can see like how they compare to people at the next level. Darren Peterson has like an oddly strong correlation to Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, play types and skills wise. Is he going to get there? We'll see. I think that would require several leaps for him to make, and it's just as an SGA. But that's the type of guy Kansas has. But my concern is, of course, are you going to put too much on him too soon? Is he going to be asked to do too much? Because it's really just Dawson that you can pass out to. Melvin Council Jr. is not a great shooter. He's he's okay at twos, but not great from three. Trey White's okay at it. Everybody else is kind of or negative. So I have this bad feeling of like Peterson getting downhill over and over and over, getting doubled at the rim, and then passing out to somebody to brick a wide open three. And I feel like that could be the Kansas offense a little bit like the bad Kevin McCullough nights from a few years ago.
Yes.
Um, but I think more so than that, like I agree, this is a season about Bill Self. It's kind of why I felt like they could be a good post hype team this year. Like one last bite at the apple, one last swing for the fences. They are clearly going all in on defense. I think we would agree. Like there's a real path for them being top five defensively this season. Really leaning in hard on that end, and running that to a two seed or something is not outlandish, especially in such a you know stout big. I guess stout top half of the Big 12 with maybe the best player in the league as your star freshman. I don't know. We'll find out. But yeah, I want to see, does one also signify the number of seasons Bill Self has left as a college head coach? Does it signify the number of deep tournament runs left? There's a lot more unknowns than you would ever expect with Kansas basketball on this team, which makes them, for me, probably the most interesting they've been in a few years.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Last couple of years, I wasn't like amped to find out what's Hunter Dickinson going to do this year. Like it just, I knew what to
Which games
expect.
is he going to vibe in and out of this time?
Yeah, and you got Harris and Adams were back. It's just there was some stagnation, some staleness with that core, and I think it's exciting to look at this group and see what happens with Peterson in charge. It also is sort of confusing to me because back, in was it 2019 or 2018, they made the Final Four playing basically four out around Azubuike. You had Zvi Mikhailuk and Marcus Garrett playing basically the four spot, and Bill Self had kind of leaned into taking threes and playing smaller, faster, more guards. And this group sets up that way defensively with Trey White
Mm-hmm.
nominally playing the four, but there's just not the same caliber of shooting unless Cole Rosario is a bigger impact as a freshman reclass than maybe expected. And it's a little surprising because I think Self has known the value of it in the past, but he's run into a bunch of teams in a row here that don't really have the perimeter juice and have not taken many threes.
Hmm. I would like to call a couple of results ahead of time, though, looking at their schedule here, that
Okay.
are going to be like perfect national media fodder. December 2nd, they will be beating UConn at home. Lock it in.
Yes.
I think that's obvious. And I'm going to go with February 23rd beating Houston at home. And that's like the big, oh, Kansas is back, baby, result after they lose to Oklahoma State the previous week. I think that's like that's the one that hooks in a certain subset of the media that's very reactive to single game results.
Yeah, Bill Self's got a little of that. You mentioned possibly losing to Oklahoma State. A little of the Dan Hurley, like lose to my alma mater, because he is an
Mm,
Oklahoma State grad and sometimes like runs into trouble with them. I believe a Mike Boynton Oklahoma State team was the first one to sweep them in Big 12 play in Bill Self's
mm.
tenure. That was like 6 or 7 years ago or something. And it was like, holy cow, he went a decade without ever being swept by a team. But yeah, I think both of those results make a lot of sense to me. Like, all right, lost to Oklahoma State. Does this team really still have it? And then they beat Houston. And everyone says, oh, yeah, that's right. Bill Self's
Mhm.
still pretty good at this
No
coaching thing.
escalators. No escalators is not allowed to get mad at us for the UConn production. That feels like pretty easy to guess.
Yeah. I mean, even the Klingon team lost there. I think they
Yeah.
had Stefan Castle did not play. But losing it, Fog Allen is no slight at all. There's no
No.
shame in that. All right, number 6, Iowa State. Will, I kick it to you. What are you looking at for the Cyclones?
Speaking of kicking it, how about ball movement for Iowa State? We never think about it this way because we always think of correctly ISU as a defense first program. And this is like sort of a shot making stat too. But Iowa State under Otts, 15 or more assists in a game, they are 63 and 7. 63 and 7, 15 plus assists in a game. That is pretty nuts. Which, if you think about it, so let's say like average team, I don't know, makes 26 shots, 27 shots, something like that in a game. It's because you're thinking like free throws too, 3 pointers, whatever. So let's just say like 27 shots. So that's barely an assist rate above 50%. That's not amazing. Like, we're not asking for something crazy here. 15 assists or more. But the reason why this is important is pretty obvious. They don't always make enough shots to produce the assists. I like this year's lineup as usual. Iowa State's always going to have a pretty high floor with this setup. But again, as usual, I don't really like the shooting options that we've got at hand here. It's going to be another year where it's like, okay, Momcilovic, if this is the game where he's going to hit 6 threes, then you're really happy about that. But like, is Mason Williams going to step in and help bail you out? Can Lipsy hit some threes
Well, Williams
a
won't.
bit more
Williams is out
frequently?
for the year, unfortunately, already. He's
Oh,
got a hip
okay.
surgery. So yeah,
Rest
you're
in
already
peace.
down one option. Yeah.
He didn't die, but for preview purposes, maybe.
Yes.
Uh, but like, I guess my question to you is like, is there a go-to guy offensively when things bog down? I'm sure people would be like Joshua Jefferson, but does Joshua Jefferson move you in the way that like other number one options in the Big 12 do?
Yeah, and typically I prefer that option to be a perimeter guy where I know I can get
Hmm.
him the ball in a spot that he can make a play. It's not reliant on, oh, they doubled him and took away the catch at the high post. Now what do we do? The hope, I suppose, is a healthier Taman Lipsey. I mean, his drop in
Hmm.
assist rate last year is really notable as Curtis Jones and Keyshawn Gilbert took a little more of the creation. I think Lipsy being banged up had something to do with that. Maybe you get a fully healthy year from him, but he's already hurt in the preseason, and the fact that he's going to be limited or banged up out of the gates already is somewhat alarming. And you don't have a lot of creation besides that. If Heisey and Momcilovic are your wings in your primary rotation, how do either of those guys set up others? I think they're more kind of shot makers, but
Hmm.
they're not going to put the ball on the floor. They're not going to do anything more than maybe make the extra pass. So you're looking at the freshmen, Jamarian Bateman, Killian Toure, Dominic Nelson was player of the year in the WAC, but I would call that a soft player of the year award. Looking back at it in hindsight, that's a title that has a little less meaning than some others. So yeah, do you have enough shot making to have great ball movement? Do you have great ball movement to set up the shot making? It's kind of a chicken and egg thing, and I'm not sure
Hmm.
they have the chicken or the egg quite. So it's interesting to look at where offense that was TJ Otzelberger's best last year.
Yeah, the variable here is like if Jamarian Bateman comes in above expectation, always plausible. I think the best version of them long term is him starting this year. Like Nate Heiss is fine. I think he's like a bang average Big 12 starter, and there's no shame in that. But if Bateman can come in above that and be like a good Big 12 starter, maybe relieve some pressure on offense, that would help a lot because I don't think either of us are really expecting much from Blake Buchanan with the ball in his hands. Uh, and like you said, it's kind of like it's Lipsy, Momcilovic, and Jefferson, and that's it. And there's no Curtis Jones here. There's no Kashawn Gilbert. I'm really, I really need like a fourth option to make it work because you can do one and fine around Buchanan, but you need the fourth. And so it's going to be on them to find that fourth. Because if you came to me at year's end and you're like, "Hey, Will, Iowa State finished third in defense and 75th in offense," I'd be like, "Yeah, that sounds about right." So, but you can't do that if you want to make the Final Four, frankly.
Right. Like part of me says, oh, it could be fun to slide Momcilovic to the 4, Jefferson to the 5, but do they have enough guards to play around that? Like without Williams, is it Heisey? Is it Nelson? Is it one of those freshmen? They have to figure that out and extend the rotation and figure out how it's all going to fit together. I trust
Mhm.
Otzelberger to do it, but I think that's probably why you have them 6th out of a really extremely solid or extremely talented top 6 in the conference.
And let me note here, like with this top six, I don't think I would put any of these outside of a personal top 20 of teams nationally. Like I think all these teams are really, really stout.
Yep.
So this is like if you're sixth in this conference, you could still wear home uniforms for the entire opening weekend of the tournament.
Yeah, you could be a favorite to make the Sweet 16,
Yeah.
despite being 6th in the league. All right. So as we mentioned, that is a kind of a drop off in tier. Now we go to number 7, Baylor, who has typically been in that top tier of Big 12 teams, but of late, the last 3 years, the defense has fallen off. And well, I just have to highlight that. That has to be my number for them. What's going to be the defensive rating for this team? They've been over 1 point per possession defensively in all 3 years since Jerome Tang has left, and they turned over the roster completely. So is this a remade? Scott Drew has reestablished his identity on that end, or does this roster lean more towards offense? And that's what I see here. I mean, Obi Abim at freshman or at point guard, excuse me. Micah Ratai is the versatile shot making 4-man. Scott Drew with his offensive prowess. Yesufu, the freshman, supposed to be a big time scorer. They need a lot out of Dan Skillings and Tunde Yesufu on the wing with the size. And then what happens with Bodo and Caden Powell as your big man duo is that Big 12 caliber rim protection behind a roster that may not be ultra stout, stopping the ball and moving its feet. So I question whether the defense will even be top 50. Will probably, and they haven't been top 50 for 3 straight years. It seems like it's going to be another kind of 60 to 80-ish defense. And is the offense good enough to match that or compensate for it? I'm not quite there.
Well, I mean, if you listen to the Baylor fans, Cam Carr should solve pretty much all of these issues. So,
Fair point.
yeah, I think a lot, and this is for sure, Baylor Swift here, the life of a showgirl style team. I was trying to work it in and I couldn't. My brain is mush. But the the thing here I do like is pretty obvious. Offensively, these guys can really shoot it. Like so, this year's team, their stats from last year: 54% from two, 38% from three. JJ White, 43%. Agbim, 43 as well. I don't have any doubt that they're going to be able to score. I actually can see where like the perimeter defense here should make sense. Like Skillings is a pretty stout wing defender. I like him out there. Rataj, how do you say it? However
I
it
think it's
is
Ratai.
like Ratai, yeah, sure. Um,
Sure.
Michael Ratai. Yeah, look, you think I do research for these? Of course I do. And of course I don't. Ratai,
We research numbers, not pronunciations. That's what we're doing.
yeah, that's for other nerds. Ratai, I think is actually like pretty stout on the perimeter for a 6'9" guy. Yesufu, I'm just very intrigued by. I don't really know what to expect there. But this is for sure for me the most variance I've felt preseason on a Baylor team in a really long time. I don't really know what they are. I think the when you go to Torvik or wherever and you see them like 36th or 33rd, or I don't know what they are at Evan's site, but I think they're about 30th. That to me is like the average of a lot of different outcomes. Where like if you said in however many months, like, oh, Baylor ended up 16th in Ken Palm, that wouldn't be that crazy to me because that would mean the defense came in above expectation and offensively it was just as good as we were all expecting. But by the same token, if you came to me in a few months and said Baylor finished 50th because they couldn't stop anybody and the offense just didn't fit together the way everybody had hoped, that's also realistic. This is going to be a really intriguing team, not just on the season, but really night to night, because I don't think even they know what to expect.
Yeah, I think there's a chance they're the seventh top 20 team in the conference, but like that's a high end outcome on the bell curve.
Mhm.
It's way to the far right side. I don't think they're like gonna ever be national title contender good, and it's tough for me to envision them like fully like tanking and not even being in the bubble. But it does feel like you said 30th is this middle outcome for a lot of variants. They're 33rd at Evan Mia's, as you were kind of referencing. That feels about right. That's where we had them in the 3-man weave top 50 countdown at Basket Under Review. It's just generally kind of where I feel like sticking them as a shrug. Like I don't know what
Yeah.
to think with Scott Drew. Typically has a little more continuity than this. Maybe not a ton all the time, but enough to carry over year to year. And this is a true full reset, which I think increases the variance.
Yeah. Cam Carr should fix it all, though. I think they'll be fine.
Well, as a Tennessee fan, tell me what you think of Cam Carr.
Uh, I think that it was really funny that this one specific know-it-all Tennessee fan I followed for years was getting really mad that they wouldn't play Cam Carr over Justin Gainey, who was objectively very good.
Yeah, he was very good last year.
He was
Yeah,
like, they need to bench Meshack for Cam Carr. You sure about that?
no, yeah, that doesn't really fit the identity. But I mean, hey, there's talent. He just it
There,
didn't work
there
out.
is talent. I will just vaguely say that he needs to mature a lot.
Yeah, fair
I
point.
will leave it at that.
And I think that's something fans don't often know or acknowledge. Or yeah, it's like I just see this 6'5" guy flying around who can make plays and want him out there. All right, number 8, Cincinnati. Frustrating team last
Ugh.
year. All the talent in the world seemed to fit together in the preseason, or seemed to all right. Well, they've got shooting, playmaking, big men, wings, defenders. It just never really worked out. The offenses continue to look painful under Wes Miller. What's your number for Cincinnati here, Will?
First off, do you remember when they were ninth in Ken Palm last year?
I do not. Were they just smoking teams early or what?
Well, it's 3-point variance helped too, but I think at 8 or 9 games in, they were up to ninth. It's like when Pitt was 12th.
Oh, yeah. I remember that one more distinctly. My God.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Cincinnati thing is it's the same question every year. Can anyone here make shots? Because I think we've got a dominant interior defense here again. We think the perimeter defense should be pretty strong as well again. I'm starting to regret a little bit not having them in my top 10 defenses. Though the problem is that there's so many stout defenses, I'd have to rip out one that I really liked to make room for them, and that's just kind of hard. But the only two plus shooters they have here are Day Thomas and like if you squint and adjust for being 6'11", Baba Miller, you could call him a plus shooter. This is important because Cincy is 45 and 17 under West when they shoot 35% or better from deep, which is the national average. Let me remind you. 35 and 42 when they do not hit that number. 35 and 42. And this team collectively shot 30.9% last year. I do lean on the side of, and I do feel bad because it seems like he's going through some stuff. The departure of Jizzle James is probably a net positive for the behavior of this team and for the fit of this team because then he won't have to do the my turn, your turn thing. But with that does come the loss of a actual scorer in the backcourt. And I don't like you look at their starting lineup here, and who would you pinpoint as the best player? I guess people are like, oh, Day Thomas is awesome, but he's kind of a volume guy and not like much in the way of efficiency or enjoyability. I like Baba Miller, but I do think I'm on like year 4 of waiting for Baba Miller to break out in a all conference way. Uh, I don't know. Like, do you like Jalen Celestine more than I do? Are you like a big
I do not.
Kaprizov guy? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just kind of I'm waiting to figure out who or what it is on this team that is going to help this offense work. Because, like I said, I think the defense is going to be pretty sick, but I they've got to find shooting, and you've got one good shooter who has to have the ball in his hands all the time, and a lot of up and down guys who maybe it's a very Eeyore team. Maybe I will, maybe I won't.
Yeah, to me the perimeter is so like guys are good on one end of the floor. Like Krisa is not going to defend, and obviously he slumped badly in his limited sample from 3, but he's been a good shooter. So you're
Hmm.
hoping he reverts back to what he was at Arizona and West Virginia. That would certainly be huge. But like Sincere Harris, that guy is all defense. He's not giving you any offense. Sean Abayev, all offense. I have not seen him play any defense in the tape I've watched previewing this team. Tillery is a great defender. The 2 Europeans, Atari and Rodriguez, I think are just like shooters extraordinaire. I'm not expecting much from them on the other end of the floor. So you've got to piece together the rotation and make it work, find a balance. And I seen evidence that Wes Miller can construct a balanced team? No, I haven't. It seems like he's going to lean hard into the defenders, the guys that show up to practice with their hard hat and their lunch pail and are gritty. And, he's more interested in that kind of player and just trying to score in transition. So I have to see how it works before I really believe, especially after last year when I thought they had the pieces to make it work and just did not at all. But yeah, Baba probably has to play to give front court spacing. I like the 2 centers they have, Haynes and Chum, but it might be tougher to play them together considering the limitations of the perimeter. And then, yeah, I would just add real quickly, I'm with you, not worried about Jizzle James being gone. On-off stuff, he was a complete neutral net zero per CBB analytics, like right in the middle, made very little impact on either end of the floor. And I just think it can work better without him next year rather than him trying to put up a 30% usage on a roster that has a lot of guys that could be useful offensively.
And the Haynes and Schaum thing is really frustrating because you wish those guys had complementary skills, but they are kind of true polar opposites on the court. You know, Haynes, I actually think, could give them a lot offensively when he's in the game. But the problem is he makes the most sense as a sixth man or microwave. If you can call a post up big a microwave scorer, then yes, let's go with that. Because I think that's actually his best role for them. But Chiam kind of has to play to make the interior defense work. It's another like messy team, but I do think the defense is just so good that I would favor them to finish top half.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to you like your microwave scorer, big man. There's a guy named Devonte Gardner that played for Marquette. Was
Oh
like
God, yes.
nearly 300 pounds, but did not start much in his college career, but would come in and just cook off the bench.
The original DJ Burns.
Exactly. So perhaps that's the right role for Haynes at the power conference level. Chom's got the weird like shot blocker, 3-point shooter combo unicorn potential, but I think it's a lot more theoretical at this point. He was a reclass big last year that was good, not great. Yeah, it's just kind of an odd collection of parts that if it was a certain coach or a different coach, I'd probably be like a little more excited about figuring out the fit. But with Wes, it just kind of feels like they are going to be what they are, which is, to your point, middling in the conference here at 8th. All right, we go to number 9 now, West Virginia. New coach Ross Hodge, second straight year they were in the market for a new coach. Actually, I think it's kind of like the third. They had
Third.
Huggins gone, Eiler takes over. It's just they want some stability. Hopefully it is Hodge. The number I'm looking at here is the number of threes made by Honor Huff and Trace and the Eagle staff, because that tells me whether they're able to stay on the court defensively, whether they're able to actually make shots, or if they're a little phased by the step up in competition from the SoCon and the Summit, 2 leagues that are not athletic bastions or athletic powerhouses. The two made a combined 215 threes last year. I mean, they can really, really shoot it. Huff was at 130 himself. An Eagle staff, big shooter with size. I believe in the defense here with Hodge in charge. They've got size inside. Floyd on the ball is familiar with his coach's scheme. Same with Lorient. Chance Moore, I think, will be a really good defender. I just don't know what to think about the offense, and I think they need the spacing that Huff and Eagle staff can provide, but those guys could get picked on defensively, and that's what I want to see.
Yeah, it's a strange team to me because it doesn't feel Ross Hodge at all. Ross Hodge is really built in the McCaslin mold of defense first, like toughness. Like what is the toughest team wins thing? That like that's how his teams are built. And like you, I'm very confused at what they're doing defensively here. This would actually be a good argument for a zone team where I don't really see one plus like super plus defender here. I guess you're more into Obioha than I am defensively. I love him as a rebounder. I'm just not really sold on him as a true defender. But yeah, it's a strange mix of like I love as a shooter. Eagle staff is a lot of fun. I think there's pieces here that can really work. But yeah, I want to see if they combine 204. Let's set the over under at 204 combined this year because they can absolutely get there if they're allowed to rip it and they stay on the court. But if they're in the range of like 150, then that means one or both has had to take some serious bench time. And if I had to pick one that I think is going to get benched more than the other, it would be Eagle Staff, who I think is a much worse defender and not really as amazing a shooter as Huff. Great in his own right, can really fill up the basket, but Huff is kind of an every game guy, whereas Eagle Staff pops off every like five. So I I think Huff is going to find himself in the lineup more often. And it's strange because when I look at the actual starting lineup here, Jasper Floyd, Huff, Eaglestaff, Moore, Obiaha, it fits really damn well. Like it makes a lot of sense offensively. But this is a defensive coach and a defensive staff, so I don't really know if this is going to work. I'm excited to see them figure that out, though.
Yeah, there's to me, I think I'm a little higher in the defense than you with if they play, Floyd, Moore, Lorient together a decent amount. Two guys that were on that North Texas defense last year. But yeah, Obioha is not mobile. You're basically like you have to play deep drop with him because of his size and lack of mobility. Then do you try to play smaller with Lorient at the 5, even Jackson Fields from Troy? Probably not big enough to do that coming from the mid-major level. You need Obioha out there a lot, and I don't know that he's going to hold up mobily quite as much. And yeah, just with Huff and Eagle staff, like Huff is such a dynamic movement shooter, off the dribble shooter, however you want to get him up. He's good at all of that. It's just a matter of getting it off against Big 12 competition and not being a 5'10" punching bag on the other end. So it's a balance that Hodge is going to have to strike. But I do think West Virginia fits right here. 9th, 10th, even up to 8th. They've got a solid potential there.
I think that the best version of them is starting Lorient, but I wonder if they're going to figure that out night one.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the connection with the coach, so I think they're going to play him because he was with Hodge last year.
I would like him to start over Obio because I think it's going to be him or Obioha at the 5 to start the year.
Okay.
And I would really because I don't know that you can play those two together just for shooting purposes because Lorient will shoot occasionally from deep. He made 11 last year, but it's not like a big feature of the game. It's kind of like if I'm wide open, I will take it, but it's just not my preference, not my tempo, as they said in Whiplash. I would prefer for him to start at the 5 and build out around that, but then you do run into him being a little undersized, all that stuff. But yeah, intriguing build. I think I'm gonna watch more of them this year than I did last, and I've watched quite a bit of them last year. So I like what they have going on as a program. They're frisky and fun. We're just going to see how many wins that translates into.
Yep, exactly. Lorient, I think, compares reasonably well to Kamari McGriff, who was the platoon mate with Obioha at UNC Wilmington, and maybe starting at center for your number 10, Kansas State. How's that for a transition, Will? Boom.
Oh, that's
nailed
good.
it.
That's the goods.
Yeah, exactly. The Wildcats of Kansas State, Jerome Tang, definitely a disappointment last year with the amount invested in the roster. Felt like they really underachieved. Will they do the same again this year? Will, what are you looking at for Kansas State in 2025-26?
How far can one guy take you, and how far can one poster take you? Shout out to Barry Buckets, probably our most prolific Big 12 poster, I would say. No, nobody shoot. It's like he is our Dion Waiters of the
Yes.
Discord.
Yes.
Um, PJ Haggerty easily the best player on what would be an NIT roster otherwise. In a 46, then you're right 46 in the three-man leaf pool.
Yeah, which I think we thought Tyreek Smith was going to get a waiver at that point. I'd probably have him outside the top 50 now because of big man depth.
Yeah, but let's just say 46 for fun here.
Okay.
The rough wins above bubble cutoff is 45th. So we're thinking K-State squarely on the bubble basically the whole year. You take Haggerty out of that and they're not close. Because this is going to be a roster I do not like on the defensive end one bit. I think they could be quite bad defensively. And it may only really work fit-wise on offense because of Haggerty running the show. But he is such a special scorer and downhill driver that he can make almost anything look good. I do really love watching him play outside of the context of foul. But if he can get downhill at the same level he did for Memphis, K-State could really have a great offense. So last year, Memphis 13-1 when Haggerty scored 12 or more points in the paint, which it's amazing he did that 14 times, of course. But I think it's notable 5 of the 6 losses in most of Memphis's underwhelming games and like non-covers against really bad AAC competition came when he didn't get downhill. That could be, any number of factors where lanes were packed. Maybe he just got bored. Maybe Memphis's offense didn't really have a ton of structure in it. So, you just kind of fart around for 20 seconds and loft up a three that goes in because Tyrese Hunter shot 80% from three for some reason. Um, I want to see the points in the paint for him on a nightly basis. Is he allowed to drive downhill? Is he getting to the rim a lot? Is he getting fouled a lot? We saw him set, maybe not records, but really high free throw numbers at Tulsa and then again at Memphis last year. If he's able to do it and make it conference invariant at the Big 12 level, that does get you into All-American discussions. And if he is an All-American this year, that is probably enough to drag them to the tournament.
Yeah, he's got to be great on both ends of the floor. I mean, like he's their highest rated defender per Evan Mia's projections, which that alarms me
Jesus.
a little bit.
That's
Yeah, I know
right.
Nate Johnson was like the player of the year in the MAC at Akron and as a reputation defensively. But to your point, getting points in the paint, you want spacing. And are you going to play Abdi Bashir a ton? Because that's going to hurt your defense. Andre Kostic a lot. That's really going to hurt your defense. You don't have switchable bigs. You don't have a real rim protector. It's kind of going to need to be smoke and mirrors on that end, even though Tang is a really good defensive coach. And you have to find the balance of, again, of playing the offensive talent to go with Haggerty and give him room versus just playing bad defensive lineups.
You think he could go back to the Drew family zone this year?
I don't see why not. I think he probably needs to.
I kind of think he might have to.
Yeah, with the big rotation, play that amoeba and just kind of hope for the best.
Yeah.
All right, number 11, which I think we would say generally the last one you feel decent about being a good, like a solid bubble team. And then it gets to like, what the heck are these teams 12 through 16? Number 11, TCU, another purple squad here. The number I'm looking at is the possession length offensively, because they slowed down last year after 2 really strong seasons with Mike Miles and Jameer Nelson Jr. running the show. And I think this team should run. Harding is very familiar with it from his days at Iowa. I think Jaden Pierre fits well there too. They've got mobile wings forwards with David Punch, Caden Edwards, Jace Posey, Micah Robinson, guys that can move really at 1 through 4. And that was a staple of those quicker teams a couple of years ago. I don't know if they're going to, if that's what Dixon wants to do. I think this offseason he's had some quotes about doing so, and TCU fans are excited about that. But it's an interesting conundrum for Dixon. And I just pulled this quote from Blue Ribbon that I thought was good, where Dixon said, "We don't have any $1 million players or $4 million players. They are at a disadvantage with player acquisition." And I think it shows a little on the roster. And I think playing up tempo and letting some of this depth and mobility play up would be a good way to go.
They are, to steal a college football term, they're the run and don't shoot offense. I don't want to see this team take threes. But I do want to see them run because when they were at their best a couple of years ago, they were smoking the field in fast break points per game because they'd force steals, they would fly down court, they'd get to the line. It was extreme and it was a lot of fun. Like I was never totally certain if it would hold up night over night. And against some of the better Big 12 competition, it didn't work quite as well. But I do think that they're at their best when they're in that run and gun mindset. Attack the rim, get downhill, do whatever you can to either A, get to the paint or B, get to the free throw line. That's the TCU I want to see. And I do think in a league like this, where especially if you're a TCU, and probably I'm going to wager that most of their rev shares going to football first and could be going to like baseball second, because if I remember correctly, their baseball program is quite good. But uh, I think for them, you have to moneyball it a little bit, and the way to moneyball is just you got to stand out. So if you play super fast, you just annoy teams. I think that's your path to contention and is sort of staying in the bubble race this year.
Yep, be different. If you're at a resource disadvantage, it just makes no sense to try to play the same as everybody else. It's kind of like we talk about with underdogs, giant killers in the NCAA tournament. Don't be like the same as the team you're playing. Be different. Be harder to play against. All right, number 12, UCF. And again, I think we can order this 12 through 16 however you want. Maybe one or two a little better than the others, but UCF last year tried to be different. They did what TCU did, played fast, took a ton of threes. It was not the Johnny Dawkins typical squad. It worked okay, cracked the top 70 of Ken Pom and won 7 games in the league with sort of a talent deficiency. But what are you looking at with UCF this year, Will? Because I'm kind of at a loss with this roster.
So that could be good. It could be awful. I'm sure like we'd probably lean towards that. But my question here is less statistical and more, can you make a mega lineup work with JaMychal Stillwell and John Bull together? Because I think that is probably the best two you can run out at the 4 and 5. And based on how they should play together via Evan Miyakawa's numbers, it would put up gigantic rebounding numbers on both ends of the court. They would own the boards. And frankly, for a team that needs to find advantages anywhere they can, that's probably worth the risk of being really bad at shooting a basketball, which they would be anyway. So I'm not really sure it would matter much. I think if you're because I guess Carmelo Pacheco is the only shooter I really like here. I don't love much at all offensively to begin with. Like, if you're really into Themis Folks, good for you. Georgia Beal really stirs you up. I mean, oh yeah, I'm sure this is the year Riley Kugel will figure it out.
It's the Riley Kugel show. Here it comes.
Yeah, everybody's banging the doors down for Riley Kugel. People are clamoring. It's like Harry Potter all over again at the bookstores. They're at midnight madness for Riley Kugel. Can't freaking wait. No, but you should play Stillwell and Bolt together because you would own the boards. And if you can make that work, like for long stretches of the season, that at least gives you something on a team where I would really have a hard time picking out what the statistical advantages would be otherwise. Like they did pluck Arturo Dean late in the process, so they're going to force some steals on the perimeter. But Arturo Dean is not good offensively and doesn't really do much other than steal basketballs. So you have to find anything where you can just run up some sort of advantages. And I know rebounding margin is not a great stat because it is very much just did you make or miss shots. But in the last 5 years, when they've won pure rebounding margin, they're 60 and 29. That's pretty darn good. Like if this is a program that if they can find those little advantages, they can win. And I do wonder if this is going to be, on their fourth attempt of trying to do so, if this is the year Johnny Dawkins actually gets fired by UCF, because I think they've tried to do it. They've tried to do a secret firing of him probably 7 different times and just can't pull it off. One of the strange, it's kind of like a heist movie where the heist just sucked, and it's just run by morons. So I'm not really sure what's going on there, but I do think the defense has improved, but that's not going to be enough to really make you contend. So I want to see. It's like TCU. I want to see you stand out. Show me something, and this is the something that I'd be looking for.
Yeah, dominating on the glass would be great. I mean, Stillwell's basically a mid-major Tobe Awaka last year with his just dominance on the the glass two ways. I kind of can squint and see a defense here with Bull and Stillwell sharing the floor. I think Kugel and Devin Cambridge is a really good defensive duo. Like Kugel, when he's locked in, is actually a really good defender. So that 2
Hmm.
through 5 works for me, and maybe you need folks out there for some playmaking offensively. But Johnny Dawkins' best teams at UCF have been good defensively. In fact, his first three with Taco Fall and then 2023, 2024, they were actually top 40 defensively. I think they could get there. I can't. I don't know what the offense is going to be besides go after the offensive glass and kind of hope you get some kick out threes and some putbacks because shot creation, shot making is a little bit at a premium here.
Yeah.
All right, number 13, Oklahoma State. Man, this is a bizarre roster, and that's why my number, Will, is the number of starting lineups used, because I am curious what the heck is going to happen here. There's so many combinations you can play on the perimeter with Clary, Roy, Isaiah Coleman, Curry, and Victorious Miller, maybe even Crotty, the freshman coming in. Then up front, you've got Christian Coleman, Manzukis, Fala, Ben Ahmed, the highly regarded freshman coming in. Robert Jennings played big minutes last year in the Big 12. It could end up being where Kanye Clary leaves his third straight Power 5 team in the middle of the season. So then you got to scramble around that. Anthony Roy is his own freaking wild card after playing for Doug Gottlieb and being on that crazy New Mexico State team that got their season stopped in the middle of the year. I just think there's a lot of throwing at the wall that has to be done with this roster to figure out what fits and what works best. And that could end up being a really sloppy-ish start to the season, and then even down the stretch where I don't know who's going to still be on the roster and who's going to be healthy. It could be a mess. I like some of the pieces. I just don't know that they're the ones that are going to play all the minutes, and I'm trying to figure that out.
So let's set a number here. Would you go over or under 8 starting lineups this year?
I'm going to guess over. I think we see double digits out of this team over
Ooh,
34
okay.
games. It's just, if even if healthy, like I think they're going to be like, I don't know, let's try Curry with Anthony Roy to have a creator with a scorer, or let's try Kanye Clary with Victorious Miller to balance the usage. And that's just the backcourt. Like I think there's going to be so much experimentation that it will take a while for it to, if it's going to look good, it will take a while to get there.
I like this. So for context, they had 5 last year. And they had the same one the final 2 months. They kind of settled on. There is a bad Huggins team, and I got to look it up really quick. I think 2018-19. Oh yeah, 18 starting lineups. That's the Big 12 record that I'm aware of. 18 different starting lineups for the 18-19 West Virginia Mountaineers.
That's too many. That's too many. I
Yeah.
feel like
If
what
I think Oklahoma State, I don't think they can get there, but if you can get to 12, I'll be very impressed.
what was that West Virginia team in Ken Palm?
In Ken Palm, I'm going to wager not good.
Yeah, that's
95th,
kind of
95th.
that's my concern here with, like, if Oklahoma State can't figure out who's good right away, then it's going to take a while, and it's going to depress their analytical ranking. But maybe by Big 12 play.
Really shocked at how many polls I've seen where they're like 9th in this conference.
There's a lot of points per game on the roster. I just don't think Anthony Roy wins games. I don't think Kanye Clary wins games. And are we going to play those guys a lot? I hope not, but probably because they need the scoring.
Yeah.
All right, number 14, Colorado. Your elevation squad, the Buffs, one of two, really. The elevation trip to Colorado, Utah is not quite the same anymore because of the unbalanced schedules and everything. But what are you looking at for the Buffs?
It is the elevation advantage. So they play a mile above sea level, 5,400 feet to be exact, highest of any P5 team. So over the last 10 seasons at Torvik, Colorado has played like a top 35 program at home. Away from home, they are number 85 in America. That's a huge gap. You go from playing essentially like an 8 or a 9 seed at home to a team well out of the tournament picture away from home. And I think this is important because there are 3 major Big 12 opponents they get at home this year. It's a weird schedule for them. They didn't really win the scheduling lottery, I would say, for home games. A lot of the home games are against sort of the dregs of the conference. So could help them run up the score for their Big 12 win total, but might not help them for an actual tournament resume. The point being here, Three huge games: Texas Tech, January 10th, Kansas, January 20th, Arizona to end the season, March 7th. How many of those can they pick off? Because the rest of the rest of the home schedule, while not like flawless or anything, does line up okay. So these are their home games this year in Big 12 play: Utah, Texas Tech, Kansas, UCF, TCU, Arizona State, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Arizona. I mean, there's a real chance that your base record there is 6-3 at home. And
Yeah,
in a Big 12 like this, like that's pretty darn good.
and it's I think it could be especially stark too with the age and inexperience of the roster. It's basically
Mhm.
one veteran senior on the roster, and that's Elijah Malone, who played 4 years of NA or 3 years of NAIA ball before coming up to Colorado. Then you've got a lot of freshmen, a smaller point guard in Barrington Hargis from the Big West, who I like. I don't know if I love him as your best perimeter player in the Big 12. And then it's a lot of freshmen, and that is a little concerning. I think it could ramp up the home away splits that you're talking about, not just the elevation, but guys that role players that are better at home in front of a friendly crowd instead of a hostile one. It's Colorado. That home schedule. If you're picking standings rather than final KenPom, I think you've got to boost up Colorado a little because the home court advantage and that schedule. There's a lot of winnable games on that home slate.
Yeah, and when you look at their road slate, I'm doing the calculation really quick, applying a little bit of a penalty for their home road split. So these are the road games in conference play: Arizona State, whatever, Cincinnati, WVU, Iowa State, Baylor, Texas Tech, BYU, Houston, Utah. Really strong chance you go like 1-8 or 0-9 in those 9 games.
Yep.
So that makes like if you can pick off just one of those big boys at home, that really does help you save face.
Yeah. Tad Boyle's known for maybe doesn't elevate his most talented teams, but he gets more with less when his teams are bad. I mean, this team was respectable in Maui last year, and I think everybody thought they're going to be the clear worst team in the tournament. That's what Boyle does. I don't think the ceiling's here with the roster to be a lot better than 12th in this conference, but if he can get there, I think that would be seen as a win externally, and maybe next year is when they really compete given the youth on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Will, number 15. I told you right before we were recording, I was having a tough time deciding what to do with my number for Arizona State. What I decided was 0. That's my number for Arizona State. 0 is the number of top 48 KenPom finishes for Bobby Hurley, despite being in a school that's 56th in program rank. 0 appearances in the round of 32 during his tenure. 0 times being selected above the first 4 in the NCAA tournament. All 3 of his appearances, they've been a first 4 team and have won twice, but never gotten to the round of 32. I just wonder what it takes to save Hurley's job. Does he have to check all of those boxes, be good enough to win a game in the NCAA tournament, make the round of 32, be a top 40-ish team in KenPom? I don't see it with the roster, but I think that might be what it takes, which makes him a little bit of a dead man walking. And I think most people feel that way. He knows it. Most external viewers know it. And that's my expectation, where it could go south despite there being a little bit of fun with this roster. Smaller guards that can score. Adams can score. The bigs are mobile. They can play fast. But I just don't see how it goes super well unless they have a lot of beneficial 3-point shooting luck.
Yeah, I'm trying to be nice, and it's very
No,
hard
be
because I
mean.
think
Be mean.
I've made my feelings clear on the work of one Robert Hurley. Um, I think that finally, after 10 seasons of it, the opinion of him in national media has been beaten down. Finally, because I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, and it was probably the year before, where the final Pac-12 media poll, and they did have 12 teams. Shout out to them. Bobby Hurley's team was 7th in that poll. 7th in the Pac-12. Went on to finish 127th in KenPom, by the way. I think that we are finally at the point where people have stopped treating him like taking him seriously after 6 years after they should have stopped. And much respect to everybody who does this, but I think that a lot of why he still has this job is driven by the fact he's pretty savvy in the media. He's pretty good at getting people to believe him, and he is a great talent accumulator. I don't think that's ever going to be the problem at Arizona State. There has never been a point in any team he's held, any tenure, anything he's done, where I thought he got more than a C grade out of his team. And that is at best. And I am a bit relieved, and I think so will Arizona State fans when this is finally up after this year, to go and hire a real basketball coach. And this is the joy of being independent. We don't really respond to him. We don't really respond to Arizona State, the school. Like, I don't think you're going to go get Randy Bennett. That's fine. But what if you go hire Russ Turner and you go get an 8 seed your first friggin' year?
Yeah, sounds great.
What if with a far shittier roster than whatever Arizona State's going to be assembling this time out?
Yeah, I'm not sure Sun Devil fans know you're allowed to wear white in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Like some teams do that. I know that that's a foreign concept to you, but it's possible. Yeah,
It's a real, like, the tweet, and not to get into anything more than we have to on the show, but the tweet where it's like, just got back from the better things aren't possible rally.
No, I have not seen that.
That is the media with Arizona State basketball. That's just like one long better things aren't, like, oh, you should appreciate Bobby Hurley. Why?
Yeah, no thanks.
Why? Why should I?
Yeah, he's not his brother. He's not getting
made a lot of
results his brother
tournaments.
did.
Okay, great. Show me the wins. Show me the wins at Arizona State.
Yeah, it would 4 out of 9 if you count or 4 out of 10. Is it 2, 3, 4, 5?
Yeah, 4 out of 10. It'll be 4 out of 11 this year.
Yeah, they're not making it. And that, Herb Sendek only made 2. Rob Evans made 1. So I guess what are you expecting out of this program? But I think you go find somebody who's done more with less, whether it's Russ Turner or Chris Gerlofson at San Francisco or something, and be a little bit more money ball, because I think that's what you need to be.
And it's not like, the thing with them that I think a lot of people always say is, like, they don't have the history. Okay, well, their football team didn't have history as far as I'm concerned. They were bad when we were growing up. And you know what? They went to the playoff last year and were one play away from making the semifinals of the college football playoff because they hired a good football coach.
Yeah.
It's not as hard as people make it look. Vandy, dadgum Vandy, just made could have made the round of 32 in year 1 after getting out of hiring doofus after doofus because they hired a real basketball coach.
Yep. Go hire a coach, not a name. Don't win the press conference, win basketball games. That's my earnest recommendation to the athletic department.
I need another limoncello sparkling water after that.
Yeah.
I'm too heated.
Yeah. All right. Number 16 is Utah. It's already started tough for them with Babacar Faye out for the season. A limited roster gets even more limited. Alex Jensen takes over, trying to mimic the Kevin Young model at BYU, but doesn't seem like the money was quite there this offseason. He's got the Rick Majerus pedigree, so that should make Utah fans happy. But, Will, what are you looking at? What's your number for number 16 Utah?
Here's the difference between them and Arizona State. This is year 1. It's not year 11, so I'm not as annoyed. I don't like this roster at all. I think offensively it's kind of a disastrous fit. But feelings about Craig Smith aside, who I quite liked, I'll at least give Alex Jensen a chance. Everybody deserves a shot once they're hired. My big thing here is fit watch, and not uniforms, but how often did Don McHenry and Terrence Brown play together by February? I think these guys are the exact same player. 2 on-ball guards. They need the ball in their hands at all times. It's an offense devoid of good shooters around them. Most of the team-wide upside is on perimeter defense, and those 2 players need to get downhill and get to the rim to make things work, and they need to play fast. If you can find a way to play those guys off of each other, that's a great sign of year 1 coaching to me, is like you've gotten one of these guys to do something they haven't done before. Or, more likely, you're going to have to stagger these lineups and have to probably bring one off the bench. So, and it's hard because I do think these are 2 of their 5 best players and 2 guys who should be playing, but you can't really make it work together unless there's something here I'm just not seeing.
Yeah, it's going to be my turn, your turn, most likely with those 2. They're not pass first. And I think Jensen talked about in Blue Ribbon with, like, oh yeah, both those guys can score and pass. It's like, well, both want to score and then maybe pass later. And that is a little more concerning. He's got the, like, buy low P5 transfers, like hope the Elijah Moore talent bet works. Ja'Kai Howard's an incredible athlete, but he started a fight on a plane for a top 5 team in the country and couldn't get on the floor despite that athleticism. It's a lot of shakiness here where you clearly had to go for the Moneyball roster fits, and it's just the talent's not there. Can he Majerus it and coax out a really strong defense and have them play so smart offensively that they just manufacture enough solid shots and take advantage of elevation? Maybe. But like, what do you see as the ceiling for them in the Big 12, Will, just with this roster and a brand new coach?
12th. They can finish 12th. I mean, like
Yeah,
that's
agreed.
it's a pretty flat back five here where any of them could finish 12th or 16th. And yeah, like they could get there. I won't be shocked if they steal a couple surprises at home. Craig Smith did last year. They beat Kansas. I'm gonna be honest, man. I got to be sold that Jensen's as good as Craig Smith is as a pure basketball coach,
Yep.
but it's certainly plausible. And while I don't usually approve of really crappy non-con schedules, I do think it's good that they have, and I'm going to read these out for you. This is their first 6 games of the year. These are all home games, by the way. San Jose State, Weber State, Holy Cross, Sam Houston State, Purdue Fort Wayne, and Cal Poly, all at home. 6 no. Should be easy. And that allows you to get your legs under you and kind of figure some things out. See, because if you get to Cal Poly and you can already tell like McHenry and Brown can't play together, that's probably a net good for your season because then you can fix it before you get to real meat of the schedule.
I'm gonna say they get epitome of brutality once in there, Will, to start the season.
I think it's probable. I would actually pick out Purdue Fort Wayne as a team that could do it. It's a
Hey, okay.
pretty intriguing team because that's so the important piece of that slate. I can't believe we're going into this on Utah's non-conference schedule, but what other podcast would do it for you? They have a couple of turnarounds here that are oddly quick. So Weber State is Saturday, November 8th. Holy Cross 2 days later. IPFW, we can still call them that, or November 18th, a Tuesday. Cal Poly 2 days later. Those are a couple of odd turnarounds, and they actually play Sam Houston, Purdue, Fort Wayne, Cal Poly. That's 3 games in a 5-day span. They're going to be 14 plus point favorites in all of those, but it only takes one where you're just not hitting shots and you get a little bit of dead legs. I mean, like after that Cal Poly game, they get 5 days off, then they go play Grand Canyon. There's a potential. I could see an epitome of brutality game there somewhere. I don't think it'd be Holy Cross. I'd be
No.
quite surprised by either Weber or Sam Houston, but somebody from that San Jose IPFW Cal Poly group could do it.
I'm going to say it's Poly. As you mentioned, it's the third game in 5 days, and you're playing a team that's like number 2 in the country in tempo, and it's going to zip around and one at Stanford, the number 80-ish team in the country last year. Really good coach in DeGeorge. If you're not dialed in, I think it could get ugly there. But this is about the build for Utah. Figure out what you are, what your identity is under Jensen, and then try to be better in year 2 and climb the ladder in the Big 12. All right, that's everybody. Will, let's do the quick recap question. How many teams in the tournament and how many wear white home jerseys in the first round of the NCAA tournament?
Man. I'm gonna go 6. I'm gonna lean against Baylor. I'll say Baylor gets a 9 or a 10.
Okay, to make so
I
that's
think
this is 6 to wear home jerseys, not to make the tournament.
6 wear home jerseys. So Houston, BYU, Texas Tech, Arizona, Kansas, Iowa State. I would be fairly surprised if one of those do not end up at least an 8 seed. I don't. The bottom would really have to fall out on one side of the court or the other, and it would be a pretty shocking thing for that to happen for me. Beyond that, yeah, like you can squint and be like Baylor 8 seed, but again, a lot has to go right for them to join that top 6 group.
Yep. Yeah, I'm looking at last year as a pretty solid indicator. 7 teams make it. 6 of them wear home jerseys in the first round, including Kansas as a 7 seed, BYU as a 6, and then Baylor's the 9 seed, 7 team to make the tournament. You could argue West Virginia probably should have been in last year.
Yes.
Given what they had accomplished and the knock that they got for No DeVries made no sense considering when he was injured. But I'm gonna just copycat last year. Say 7 teams make the tournament, 6 wear home jerseys in the round of 64, and it's kind of a similar year to last year for the Big 12.
I'll say 8 get in. I am going to lean in favor of Cincy making it, for better or for worse. I think they finally get over the hump this year.
All right, Wes Miller, congratulations on your first NCAA tournament bid at Cincinnati.
Wes Miller, congrats on your chance to reset the clock by probably for the best of both parties immediately departing for something else.
Yeah, the fake extension that doesn't increase the buyout whatsoever. That one's coming. All right, that is it. That's our Big 12 preview here at Stats by Will and Jim. Thank you to Trilly Donovan, our overlord at Basket Under Review. Thank you to Corey Aldis, the producer behind the scenes. Shout out to Sam Freyer for graphics. And of course, shout out to Homefield, our wonderful sponsor here at Basket Under Review. Will, any other words for the people before we let them go?
No, man, this was fun. Really need people to keep buzzing through these previews. They're so fun. We got, I think this will come out Thursday, so it'll be Mountain West Day at the site, which is very
That's
exciting.
right.
I was responsible for that, so I am tooting my own horn. But
Yes,
the
authored by Will Warren.
all the P5s have been really good, even though we've previewed most of the teams already. But the mid majors incoming, I can promise you these are going to be extremely well researched from everybody involved. Like we really do get into the weeds with these. There's a lot of P5 leagues that get a lot of the buzz. The only like G5s that get a ton of, in-depth crazy writing, or like the MAAC for Sam Fetterman when he goes 30,000 words on it.
Yeah.
But, outside of that, I really do think we're going to have the best coverage of these leagues. So sign up now if you're hearing this for the first time. You're like, what's Basket Under Review? Go check it out, man. Great website.
Yep. You got, as Will mentioned, Mountain West on Thursday. I will have the Missouri Valley on Friday. And then next week, we really start to hit mid-majors every single day. So get in there, check it out. Basket Under Review, only $10 a month. Helps independent college basketball coverage. So encourage you to support that. All right, that's it. For Will Warren, I am Jim Root here at Stats by Will and Jim. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week for another conference preview.